Hello, everyone, cosmic dreamers and celestial mischief makers. Welcome to another moonlit episode of Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself. I'm giving myself a name, Babula, Cosmic Girl Cheryl Gottschall.
Love it, love it.
Now, this is an interesting lunar cycle with the moon slipping into her sparkliest gown and strutting her stuff through fabulous flamboyant Leo. And you know what that means? It means it's time to unleash your inner lion. Toss some glitter on your dreams and roar a little louder than usual because this new moon isn't about hiding in the shadows. Oh no. She's all about planting bold, heart-led intentions that make you feel alive, adored, and ready to steal the spotlight. But this is no ordinary Leo new moon. It's woven into a potent cosmic tapestry with larger forces at play that promise both magic and metamorphosis. So, pour yourself something fancy, wrap yourself in your favorite queenly robe, and let's conjure some magic under Leo's fiery crown, where we'll dream big and plot a few daring moves while the cosmos winks at us with the twinkle of mischief. So, if you're ready to sparkle, Babula, let's dive in.
Fabulous. I love it. Let's sparkle. Let's do it. So, Leo, yes. So, we're going to dive straight into the Leo moon. It'll occur Friday, Eastern Australian time, around 5:10 in the morning. And it's 2 degrees of Leo. So, the sun, as we speak, we're speaking a couple of days before the new moon, the sun has literally just gone into the sign of Leo. And on the new moon, it'll be at 2 degrees. And as you touched upon the word metamorphosis, this new moon is absolutely infused with some really deep, potent, powerful energy. So, Leo is one of the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac: Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. And those 4 fixed signs are signs of power and strength and determination and will and a capacity to build and hold energy. And Leo does that through the element of fire.
Mm.
And it's like a roaring fire in a hearth, how we love to sit in front of a fire. Um, and so because it's a fixed sign, it's fire that's held and contained. So it builds power and energy. This new moon sits opposite Pluto. Almost, well, it's virtually exact. It's the same degree. Pluto is now retrograding at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So it's sitting exactly opposite this new moon. So any new moon in Leo, every year around this time, there'll be a new moon in Leo. It is absolutely an invitation to shine, to step into power, to be our authentic self, to show up, to be present, to be, to step forward and also to do those things that give us joy, that make us feel fulfilled so that we're expressing our solar nature, because the sun rules the sign of Leo and now it's in Leo. So the sun's on full power. And at the new moon, it's with the moon. And this one with the opposition to Pluto just brings in that whole other quality of depth, of potency, of power, of transformation, of death and rebirth. And I must admit, in the last year or so, I've started thinking of Pluto as the cosmic wrecking ball,
Yeah.
because its energy is to dredge up from the unconscious and from the underworld and from the hidden realms what is ready to be seen.
Mm.
And sometimes that's not always easy or comfortable or pleasant. It can be very challenging and confronting at times. With Pluto so strongly connected to the sun and moon in the sign of Leo, it's got to do with ourself, because Leo is the sign of the self. It's all about me. And some people see that as a problem with Leo, but actually we need to know who we are, that if we don't know who we are, we can't really live a fulfilling, powerful life,
Mm.
And we certainly can't, we don't feel confident, we don't feel good about ourselves. So we do have to, certainly at this time of year, bring some focus to who am I? Who am I really? And am I living my true nature? Am I really expressing who I am? Am I showing up in my life? Am I able to step forward and take up a role of leadership, and and roar like a lion, as you said, the powerful lion.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Pluto's wrecking ball nature comes in, and I feel like one of his most important functions is to clear out of the way what's in the way.
Mm,
What shadow energies are causing us to hide our light or not stand in our truth or to express our joy or to allow ourselves to be as powerful as we really are. Pluto will show us, and often it's because, it's an old fear that we might have, that we turn away and contract and hide. We might have shame. Shame is a big Leo issue, and it's one of the shadow energies. If we are full of shame about whatever, just feel shamed about who we are, that light of the sun isn't going to shine very strongly. So Pluto might bring up things like that. It might bring up old um, memories or experiences from the past, from childhood or relationships where we've been made to feel belittled or diminished, or you're too loud, you're too much. I remember
yes.
years ago, I did this really powerful retreat for women, and we did these kind of rites each woman did in front of other women. And the facilitator looked at me and said, "Be too much for us." It's like that permission to actually go there and be too much
Mm,
because we hold back, and that invitation then really was, really allowed me to bring forth something that I hadn't let be seen before. This is all Leo territory.
yeah. I think with that that opposition, that Pluto opposition, that the it's a very transformational moon, bringing it with it intense feelings. So, and I know in my own life, before transformation, there's always mess and chaos and often trauma. And while we go through that, we can feel the dimming of our inner sun, and weakness,
Yeah,
like you were saying, insecurity and fear. So, um, with Pluto in opposition, it's sort of taking us down into our inner depths where those feelings exist that that's highly likely that's going to happen. And I think, and when I was thinking about this, I thought I've been there. I identify with that when I've been ill, for example, and I
yeah,
felt the trauma of going through that illness and the fear and the insecurity when I'm normally a face it head on, courageous person, but it was like you go down into all those depths
yeah,
and even, embarrassment sometimes or
yeah,
that sort of thing. And you can see when a lion cowers against an enemy, which you don't see very often, by the way.
that's right.
Actually, I don't even know if I've ever seen it, but you can imagine it, and it's a very unfamiliar sight, but it's
Mhm.
sort of there inside, like, and I really identify with that at times when I feel cowardly about something. I don't want to be, I'll avoid a situation. This is the other thing you can avoid people and situations because you're
Mm,
just too fearful. You don't show up for what you really need to do or can do, or your soul is being called to do.
exactly. Yes, that's right. And there are times in our life when that is how we feel. And I think this new moon can really take us into some of that territory. And you mentioned courage, and Leo is very much about courage. It's the lion heart.
Mm,
And the only times I've seen a lion cowering, and it would be on a video, not in real life, is when it's been really mistreated over a long period of time, and it becomes, terrified of more mistreatment.
yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to see that, in an animal that is so proud and magnificent and glorious. And
Mm,
these are Leo words, glorious and magnificent and proud. And in the body, Leo governs the chest. And, and we can pay attention to, are we standing upright, with our chest open, or have we shrunk and collapsed?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the physical heart too is also Leo. So, and Leos are quite often a little bit susceptible to heart conditions. It's just the nature of the sign. So, this could be something that could be going on in the
Mm,
collective during this period. There might be just more incidences of heart conditions showing up.
mm,
The other thing, of course, is that Leo, as a sign of power, and Pluto is a planet of immense power, um, we're going to see some more. I mean, it's just so much going on in the world, but some pretty big dramas, I think, on the world stage around battles between leaders, that like, and if Pluto goes into battle, it's to the death, it's so
yeah.
intense.
To the bitter
So,
end.
what's that?
To the bitter end.
To the bitter end. Absolutely. So,
Very
this
much.
is a very potent new moon, but on a personal level, it really is about transformation and self-empowerment
Yeah.
and really recognizing the ways we're not being true to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and that might mean that a situation might arise where there's a lot of pressure, which is very plutonic, and at some point that line just has to roar and just say, enough, I'm not putting up with this anymore, I'm not doing that anymore. It can be really that sense of, it's like a lion that's been cowed when it finally just goes, I've had enough, and it just
Yeah.
attacks its abuser or something like that. And
Yeah.
it comes back into its true lion nature.
Mm, mm.
I'm using that as a metaphor, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is a very potent energy, this new
Yeah.
moon.
While we're on the subject of lions, I wanted to share the mythology around the lion that represents Leo,
Mm.
because it's associated with the, now I don't know if it's Nemean or Nemean lion in Greek mythology.
I've always called it Nemean, but I'm not
Really?
sure exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this lion terrorized the region of Nemea. And this lion was larger than any ordinary lion and known for its ferocity and strength, with a hide that was impervious to weapons and claws that were sharper than swords, making it virtually unstoppable. And King Eurystheus asked Heracles to slay the lion, but Heracles found his arrows couldn't penetrate its fur. But eventually he managed to kill the lion by strangling it with his bare hands. They must have been very powerful. But then he
Mm.
tried to remove the skin from the lion, but his knife was unable to cut it. And after a lot of effort, the goddess Athena told him to use one of the lion's claws to skin the creature, which he did. And he wore the hide as armor, providing Heracles with protection. So the Nemean lion came to represent the challenges faced by heroes and the triumph of strength over seemingly insurmountable obstacles. And when I think of Leo, I also think of, bravery and courage and
Mm.
heroes, heroic actions.
Mm.
And, it takes a lot to reach down inside yourself and utilize that, get in touch with it and utilize it and use it like what would you say, like a shield, so you can go forward into whatever situation you have to face.
Yes, and the confidence
Mm.
to do that. And it's an interesting thing, Leo. I used to wonder about this when I was younger, and in the early days of getting into astrology, I would notice quite often Leo people would initially seem very confident, but after I got to know them, I could see that there was a lot of what I call self-consciousness, and sometimes they would feel very kind of vulnerable and exposed in a way that was very self-conscious and uncertain and not very confident. So I think for people with Leo energy in their chart, part of what they're learning to develop is a deep, strong sense of self and the self-confidence that comes with that. So something has to grow,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know. And And this new moon with the opposition to Pluto, there could be some kind of crisis show up for many people, particularly if that 2 degrees is hitting something in your own birth chart, then it becomes very relevant. Um, that is calling you up to stand in that power of identity and that strength, as Heracles or Hercules has taken on and able now to embody some of the strength of the lion.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
it's also a sign of incredible joy. There's that inner childlike quality of Leo's that just wants to play and party and have fun and celebrate. Like I'm just thinking of my grandson, he's a Leo. His birthday is actually the day before this new moon. It's actually tomorrow, and he's got a lot of Leo, but his sun is very close to this. And like, when we have a party and a celebration for him, it's like the bigger and louder and brighter and the more fun it is, the happier he is. There's a need for it to be a real, and he's not going to sleep tonight. He's so excited.
Mm.
It's that whole focus then it'll be all about him, and it needs to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
also,
yeah,
sorry,
go on.
it's also the sign of like performers and leaders, kings and queens, of course, and people, known for being ambitious and for enjoying being the center of attention. And I was talking to you earlier, and it's like, performers and entertainers and flamboyance is the other thing, the other word that comes to mind. And I was thinking, well, who sort of represents that? And then I thought Liberace.
Yeah.
He was so flamboyant and such a good entertainer, and so he could be very, very funny because he had a moon in Sagittarius. His sun sign was Taurus, but his rising sign was Leo. And
Mm.
then on the other hand, there was Lucille Ball. Sorry for all those people who aren't as old as we are. Um, but she was a great entertainer, and she was very
Mm.
slapstick and had
Yeah.
a lot of fun, I'm sure, on stage,
Yeah.
doing whatever she did, entertaining people, making them laugh. And yeah, so her son was in Leo, and other people like Mick Jagger and Madonna. Chris Hemsworth is another Leo. Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger was another one too. Jennifer
Yeah.
Lopez, she's a great entertainer. She dances now. Meghan
Mm.
Markle as well.
Mm.
So you can see the types of people who get the attention, whether
That's
good or bad.
that's right. So they shine. There's a presence and energy that does draw attention. And of course, the shadow side of Leo, which will be very relevant with Pluto in opposition to this new moon, the shadow side it can be a tendency to be absolutely overbearing, bossy Leo, I'm the boss. It can assume that role of I'm the king, I'm the queen, I'm the boss, you will do as I say, and just override other people's desires or needs or wishes because it's all about me. And we can see that in Leo, we can see that on display sometimes. So, I think this new moon's going to be very interesting with the Pluto connection to it. And it will show up in different ways, in life. So I'll be paying close attention, to what we see and what we notice, both personally, but also just, in the world, on the world stage. All the world's a stage, said
Mm,
Shakespeare.
yeah.
And the sun itself, which rules the sign of Leo, is all about the self and being true to oneself. And more than that, you have to know yourself first, know who you are. And I think that's the whole journey of the sun and the sign of Leo.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
This new moon has other aspects as well, doesn't it? It has aspects to all the slow moving planets too. So
It
trine
does.
Neptune, Saturn and Aries, sextile Uranus and Gemini, and opposite Pluto and Aquarius. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there really is. Those three outer planets in particular, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, are all about transformation and evolution. And so this new moon is receiving a lot of energy, the sextile from Uranus, and that's a very close sextile, will can really trigger sudden change and events, but it can also be quite exciting. It's a sextile, which is a more kind of gentle, not such a jarring flow of energy.
Mm,
Uranus can sometimes be quite jarring. It might just be, exciting, and maybe you're going to go out to a big event, and it might be a big music concert or something like that, big exciting event. um, the trine to Neptune, that's transformational energy that comes through a more fine kind of finely tuned spiritual transcendent kind of an energy, or a more sort of mystical
mm,
energy. And of course, the opposite to Pluto is just about raw power, actually.
mm,
So
mm,
yes, it's a very potent new moon. And of course, Mercury's traveling retrograde in Leo. It won't, on the time of the new moon, it's about 11 degrees away from the new moon. So it's not right on it, but it's sitting there, in the region of this new moon. And Mercury retrograde in Leo is very much about, are we really communicating in a way that reflects who we really are?
mm, mm,
And I think what can happen when Mercury is retrograde, we get to recognize and pay attention to the ways we are not saying what we really mean, or saying what we really need to say, or we're needing to go back over information and check it, and review and maybe think about it again. But in Leo, it's very, again, connected to the self.
mm. With that, what was I going to say? With that moon sextile to Uranus, I think we may express ourselves more wildly or unexpectedly. Like people might go, "Did you just say that?" You
That's
know,
right. That's right.
so it's sort of like, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth.
That's right. Exactly. And yes, we can surprise ourselves even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done that often.
Yeah.
Did I just
And
say that
and
out loud?
yeah, I know. Did I really just? That's right.
Yeah.
And the Pluto part of this could be, we might find ourselves saying something that could be really raw and even a bit edgy and a bit dark, or even very dark, that can take people aback by surprise.
Mm.
It's that Leo and I need to express, to really express. And whenever I meet a Leo or someone with a lot of Leo who's always holding back on expressing themselves,
Yeah.
I just find that, really sad. And if it's a client or something, I'm encouraging in whatever way possible, if I can see things in the chart that can help guide and support that person to really express themselves, whether it's through creativity or, in whatever way, or through their body, whatever way. So important for Leo.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes, interesting. Because I know a couple of people who are Leos, but they're also in the background. They don't want to be on the stage. They don't want to be the limelight. They want to be in the background. Thank you very much. But they still can be a driving force for whatever's taking place.
Exactly, and behind the scenes, and their creative power might be operating more behind the scenes. So that could be somebody with, the Sun in Leo in the 12th house, for example.
Yeah.
It's operating behind the scenes, but it's really powerfully Leo nonetheless.
Mm,
Just not
mm.
quite so visible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if it's in the 4th house, it's all going on in the home arena, with family
Mm,
and home, and it's not
mm.
so much out in the public
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For us on the east coast of Australia, the moment, and with the houses, they change throughout the day, so it's not so relevant. But we'll be in the first house on the east coast of Australia at the moment of the new moon, early in the morning, just before sunrise.
Yeah.
And the first house is very much about the self,
Yeah.
but once the sun's come up, then it won't be in the first house after that.
Mm.
Um, all right, so shall we look further afield?
Yes, I think Is it Chiron retrograde Aries now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, let's
So
do that.
let's look at that. So on the 31st of July, so that's 5, 6 days or so after the new moon, Chiron, the wounded healer archetype, he's been traveling through Aries for about 7 years now and is making his way slowly to the end of Aries. And in 2027, he'll be in Taurus, but he's going to turn retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries. And, Chiron's been pretty significant in this last year or two because it's been traveling with Eris,
Mm.
that goddess of chaos and discord, the great disruptor and exposer of, um, hubris and vanity and manipulation and so on. Um, So I think, the woundedness of Aries, we can consider Chiron in the different signs. What does a wound look like in this sign? So in Aries, it can literally be physical wounds and injuries. So around the time of a planet stationing, slowing down to appear to stop and change direction, its energy is very present and very strong. So, we might want to take a little bit more care with sharp knives and so on. But of course, in the moment, we're not thinking, if we're feeling a bit stressed or rushed, which is an Aries thing, can be an Aries thing, and we're chopping up vegetables or something, it's just a split second and that knife slits and there's an injury or wound. So it can be around that, can be issues to do with energy and vitality, because Aries is normally a very energetic sign. Um,
Yeah. I think that, for me, and I've seen this in my own chart because I have Chiron in the first house, do I? I have to have a look now. I think I do. Yes. It's when it gets you to look at your woundedness, which often happens, um, if you're trying to find that healing, whether it's emotional or spiritual or physical, it can take you on a quest. It takes you on a journey with it, I think, to that sort of awakens you to your very soul. It's sort of like can send us into shamanic territory where our soul communicates with spirit in that quest to find resolution for our woundedness, no matter what it is. Can be very deep and obviously transformative. We've still got Pluto there in opposition to as well playing out, but yeah, and it's just invites us to take a closer look at our wounds and how they may be shaping our life. Because as you've said, those wounds are not always obvious, but they steer the direction that we take, how we respond, how we hold back from various situations and people. So yeah, and when you think of the story of Chiron itself,
mm,
it was just a story of complete rejection and
mm,
then finding himself too. And in
mm,
Aries, I think that's really, really the story, isn't it?
mm. Yes, because Aries has a lot to do with, autonomy and identity. And again, like Leo, they're both fire signs. Pardon me, themes around, knowing who we are and having the courage. Leo and Aries got a lot to do with courage, both those signs, to go forth and blaze new trails and be more independent and stand on our own 2 feet and having the confidence to do that. And so, we can think of things like the wounded warrior, with
Mm.
Chiron in the sign of Aries.
Yeah.
And, I've seen over the years in a number of cases, women sometimes with Chiron retrograde in Aries may have had some experiences with other people asserting themselves over that woman, with a lot of anger and maybe even physical violence at times. So the woman becomes afraid to express their own anger and autonomy. And so the healing journey is about coming into their own sense of self and
Mm.
not being afraid of that energy, being able to stand strong in the face of it and push back. And and find that inner warrior energy inside, you know.
Mm.
And we see lots of evidence of this in the world. Um, with all the pain that goes on around war, and men returning from war, and men suffering physical injury but also mental injuries after war, and then governments not taking care of them and supporting them properly and so on. These are all themes. And just the wounded masculine, Aries is such a masculine energy. These are some of the themes that can come up in the physical body, physical injuries, particularly to do with the head. Illnesses associated with Aries can be around the blood, um, the muscles, physical vitality, and so on.
Yeah, while you're speaking, I'm just imagining the how these soldiers felt who went to war to protect country, their loved ones, came back and were rejected. It's that same chironic force, isn't it? They're
Right.
rejected by society, by their own tribe. Um,
Yep.
and the pain that the
Yeah.
betrayal they would have sensed, by from that pain and what they went through, what they gave up, what they sacrificed,
Yep.
and Chiron's, I think he eventually sacrificed himself, didn't he, to
It did in the end.
volunteer
That's
to
right.
swap places with Prometheus.
That's right.
Um, Fortunately, Zeus took pity on him and freed him and lifted him up to dwell among the stars eventually, or so
Yeah.
the mythology goes. But like, we don't always have people who'll rescue us. We have to rescue ourselves a lot of the time. But I can just put myself in the shoes of those
Mm,
soldiers and how deeply, deeply hurt and because of that could have bent and twisted them,
yes. I mean, they are literally abandoned,
Yeah, yeah.
but by the government, by the very country. And there are very high suicide rates amongst returned soldiers in many countries in the Western world, including our own.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm,
Yeah. So, I mean, it even gets down to issues for men like, in the last 2 or so decades, testosterone levels are dropping in men. So the fertility level is being very diminished. And testosterone, in many ways, is largely, what makes a man a man. So
mm,
there's all these issues around, well, what is a man? And
mm,
so on. This is all part of the territory of Chiron in Aries, which has been up very strongly in the last 7 years or so.
mm, mm,
And so now that it's at the station like this, about turning retrograde, and it sits at that point stationary for about a week, and then it turns and slowly gathers momentum and will move back. Yeah, some people might really notice anything of what we've just been speaking about might show itself as being relevant currently,
mm.
even down to just cutting your finger with a sharp knife when you're chopping up carrots.
Bring it back to basics.
Right, back exactly, exactly.
Mm, mm,
Um, okay, so the healing medicine of Chiron and Aries has really got a lot to do with, I think, to do with courage and also getting the physical body strong and working your muscles. When our body feels physically strong, we feel so much better, so much more able to deal with life.
yeah.
So I think that's part of the medicine of Chiron in the sign of Aries, and also working to, keep your blood strong. I know in Chinese medicine, they talk about blood building foods and herbs and so on, to make sure the blood is healthy, that it's nice and red, which is very Aries, the
Mm,
iron in the blood,
mm,
energy levels. This is all Aries territory.
mm, mm.
Mm,
Interesting.
yeah. Now, on the same day, having just said all of that, Venus, the love light of the goddess of the heart, comes out of Gemini, where she's been very busy, and will move into the sign of Cancer on the same day that Chiron is at that standstill, turning retrograde. And so Venus will move through Cancer for about 3 weeks, three and a half weeks or so. And that, I think that's a lovely sign for Venus to be in, because, Cancer is such a feminine sign, and it's all about nurture and the warm embrace of the mother. And Venus in Cancer is at its most pure expression. It's just the unconditional love of a mother, for
Mm.
child, for family, for loved ones. And so I think it's offering an opportunity for some self-care and self-nurturing. However, and there's always a however, um, it's square Saturn and square Neptune. The square to Neptune just makes it very sensitive, but the square from Saturn can be a little challenging with Venus.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might lack a bit of discipline required that, to get things done, or we might feel limited because of that, or whatever. Difficult.
Yeah, and it might also show up in relationships, because Venus is kind of the number one relationship planet, really. Saturn square might be, something might happen that hurts your heart, that you feel, that might feel painful or restrictive in some way. There might be some challenges going on the home front, with family, children, something like
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
overall, I think Venus in Cancer is quite a lovely transit for the next few weeks. And it's just, while it's still winter here, we can continue to make use of that Cancerian energy to, enjoy. And we know Jupiter's continuing his journey through Cancer
Mm.
to, just really enjoy a bit of quiet time, downtime, home time,
Yeah.
self-nurturing time. And in fact, on the Jupiter and Venus and Cancer, I'm jumping ahead a bit, but on the 12th of August, there's a beautiful conjunction of Venus with Jupiter
Hmm.
at 14 degrees of Cancer. And for an astrologer, like, it doesn't get more gorgeous than that. Like, that is the two benefics of the sky and the two brightest lights in our sky, Venus and Jupiter. They come together and form a union. It's just one of those really beautiful moments of every year that's really worth noting, and just treating it with, appreciation and gratitude. And, it's the kind of thing where I'd go and buy myself a lotto ticket, actually, because it can really just bring beautiful, good fortune and opportunity
Mm. Mm.
in.
I want to back up that conversation to back to Venus in Cancer squaring Neptune
Mhm.
in Aries, because I think, you know, uh, we can be Neptune's quite compassionate, but I think with Venus in Cancer can be too compassionate. So I would say, watch out you don't end up a doormat for someone as a result. Maintain your healthy boundaries.
Exactly.
Mm,
That's a really good point. Saturn helps with the boundaries, and Neptune goes, what's a boundary?
exactly. Yeah.
Right. And it can be like, just a little scenario to use as a metaphor. Like Neptune square Venus can be like just falling in love with love and falling in love with someone, and it's an illusion, but it seems
Mm,
real.
yeah.
And Saturn is the reality check. Saturn is always the reality check. What's actually real here? And
Yes.
Neptune wants to believe the dream. This is just a very simplistic way of looking at
Yeah.
it.
That's
But
true.
Neptune is the dream, because, we love to be in love. We love to fall in love. It's such a euphoric feeling. But things aren't always what they seem.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yes. And we learn that the hard way.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then we have Mars in Libra. Is that right?
Yes, we do. That's right. So on the 7th of August, just prior to the full moon, Mars, the warrior planet, enters the sign of Libra, the sign of peace, harmony, and equilibrium.
Yeah.
So traditionally in astrology, we would say that Mars in Libra is in its sign of detriment. That's the traditional way of speaking that, because what that means basically, it's in a sign that is not really compatible with its nature.
Yes.
because it rules Aries and Libra is opposite Aries, and Libra is ruled by Venus, love, beauty, peace. And so Mars, the warrior, how Mars can function though, what Mars and Libra can be very, very good for and good at is negotiation. Like
Yes.
it can enter a conflict and say, okay, we need to, so this is where counselors come, like marriage guidance counselors,
Yeah.
come in and guide the people to say what they need to say, get it all out, and how do we work together to come to some kind of peaceful resolution so that everyone gets what they need and want.
Mm.
You know, it's negotiation, making deals,
Diplomacy.
diplomacy. So this warrior has to operate in a different way. He can't just go in guns blazing.
Yeah, you've got to have common ground and balance.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
that's right. And considering both sides, you know, what do you need? What's your point of view? What do you need? This is the Libran way. So
Yeah.
now, as it enters Libra, of course, it makes an opposition to Saturn and Neptune in all. So there's a lot going on with that
Yeah.
Saturn Neptune. You know, it makes a square to Venus just the week before, and then the opposition to Mars. Um, I would suggest with that, because Venus and Mars are involved, these two planets are the primary relationship planets. You know, Venus symbolizing the feminine or woman, Mars symbolizing the masculine or man. Um, yeah, there might be some dynamics going on in people's relationship
Mm.
in that last kind of week of July, first week of August.
There could be a bit of extra passion there, do you think?
There could be,
There
there
could
could
be.
be.
Although I don't know how that opposite sa with Saturn and Neptune in Aries.
Yeah, Saturn's not always so big on
No,
passion. It's more about commitment, actually. So
commitment.
Saturn here could be like, so Neptune is the dream and the illusion.
Yeah.
It's also a spiritual connection, remember, a soul connection. But Saturn can be, okay, what's real here? Are we really going to commit? Or has this situation come to a natural conclusion and endpoint? That
Mm.
could be part of the reality of some.
Yeah, or what sort of compromise or deal do we have to make
Yep,
here
yep, to
to
make
restore
this
that
work.
balance? Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm. Oh,
And then that, of course, brings us to the full moon
yeah, it certainly does.
on the 9th
Nice. Full moon in Aquarius.
in Aquarius at almost 17 degrees. So 16 degrees and 59 minutes of Aquarius. Lots of aspects. We can talk a lot more about that next time, but lots, it's square to the black moon in Scorpio. Um, oh, that's right. It wasn't that I made my notes here. Square to the black moon in Scorpio, but Mars will be very, very active on that full moon because it
Hmm.
makes a trine to Uranus, an opposition to Saturn, an opposition to Neptune, and the trine to Pluto. So Mars going through Libra for about 6 weeks is going to have to be doing a lot of compromising and adjusting,
Mm. Mm.
you know, in our life, in relationship dynamics, particularly.
Isn't that life though?
It is.
Compromise and adjust, like adapt and overcome.
Yeah, we are. And I think, we were talking before about these last 5 years or so and just, how much has been going on. And one of the things I've found is that, I've always considered myself to be a fairly adaptable person, but I think we've all been just learning to be really light on our feet,
Mm.
adapt, move with changes, accept that there's so much movement now. We're not, we're in a period of tremendous instability, and that's just the way
Yeah,
things are. We're having to be very adaptable.
yeah, it goes with the story, doesn't it? It's you got to be quick on your feet. You got to
Yep,
be open to adapting. You can't say, no, I'm doing it my way anymore. You just got to go with the flow, let
yep.
go. Yeah, and sometimes it's really hard to get things done when you've just got to reprioritize often, you know? Mm,
That's right.
yes,
Yeah, that's right, because things suddenly just happen. You've got that plan for the day, but then something comes in that happens that throws that way, of course.
that's right. And
Mm,
speaking of reprioritizing, I won't be here for our next lunar chat
that's right.
because I'm going to have a little holiday because Babula and I have been flat chat with this for 5.5 years.
Yeah,
So we need a little break, but we will be back with the following new moon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which will lead us towards the eclipses of September.
Oh, goody.
Exactly.
Oh, dear. Oh, well, we'll have a lot more to talk about as the year progresses.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, leave some comments, subscribe if you haven't already, so you get notifications of when the episodes are published. And we will be back in 1 month.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. We're
Next
both going to
new
have a bit of a
moon.
break. Yes.
Yeah.
So, so until then, keep the magic alive, stay strong, and
Put
be
on your
safe.
crown.
Yes,
Put that
kiss.
crown firmly on your head.
Straighten it up.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Enjoy, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.